Hello, and welcome to the Over 50 Health and Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin English, founder of The Silver Edge. Our mission at The Silver Edge is to inspire men and women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond to live their strongest, healthiest, most fulfilling lives. In this podcast, we share stories of amazing individuals who are doing just that, to help motivate you to become the healthiest version of yourself, regardless of your age. And now, on to today's podcast. Hello, my guest this week is Steve Ortgiesen. Steve is a 70-year-old who began bodybuilding a little over 2 years ago. At the beginning of this journey, he wrote, "I'm hoping that by telling my story as a 70-year-old young bodybuilder, others will be inspired to reinvent themselves, to do things they thought impossible, to realize that often we are limited only by our own lack of belief in ourselves." Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm so happy to be here and share my story.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear your story. So we definitely want to hear about what you're doing now at your age, but let's start at the beginning. Tell us what you were like as a kid.
Well, as a kid, I was fairly hyperactive.
Okay.
I had two brothers, one of which was about 13 years older than me, and he, to me, looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I had to look back at pictures and see if that was true, but he was just huge. And I'm like, I want to be like him. He went off to college and left some weights behind. I'd lifted weights a little bit. And, I didn't have any instruction. I think I hurt my back doing that because eventually I had started having back problems. I went to, when I went to junior high school, they wanted me to be on the track team. I'm like, no, I'm going to be a shot putter. Now, if you've seen my pictures, I'm a slender guy, not the shot putter type, right? Mm-hmm. But I was out there doing the shot put, probably screwing my back up a little bit more and stuff like that. But as a kid, I tried to be athletic, but I had these back issues, and so it kind of held me back. But I still tried, and eventually, those problems seemed to kind of disappear. Although I still do have some issues with that, but I've always tried to be active. I've done push-ups, a lot. When I couldn't be in PE anymore because of the back issues, I was in the marching band. Wasn't very good, but I was in the marching band. That kept me going. Eventually, I got into doing karate, and actually became an instructor. I actually had a couple of dojos where I had my own classes, and that was maybe a lifesaver for me because I really needed to be doing something, and it gave me a really good feeling. I didn't feel much like an athlete, but nonetheless, I guess karate guys are athletes. That was a big thing for me. Eventually, I went on to school. I went on and became an anesthetist. I went to school in Minnesota, and came back to Utah, where I live now, and did that for almost 30 years, so quite a while. During my time as an anesthetist, I actually worked in Utah for a while. Then we moved to Hawaii. I had an opportunity there and was on a canoe racing team, which is really cool because I was the only white guy on the team. So it was very easy to see who I was out there because there's this brown, white guy, and that was really, really a great time. The fun thing about that for me was you'd get out in the ocean and the waves would be coming in at you, and you'd think, I could die doing this. This is, I could totally drown, but you know what? It's so much fun. Yeah, let's go. I don't care. And that's kind of an interesting thing about me and my life.
Well, let's talk about both of those things a little bit. So you mentioned that kind of the back problems held you from being a little more athletic than maybe you wanted to be. Yeah. And that the fact that you were kind of a skinnier kid, right? Sounds like, but always active. How old were you when you got into karate?
Oh, golly. I was probably I was in my 30s.
Okay. So that came a little bit later.
It was a bit later. Yeah.
And what about the canoeing team? How old were you when you started that?
40s.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you kind of carried some of these things from your youth over, this desire to be active, and you
Hmm.
found some outlets for that. What got you interested in martial arts and karate?
Well, when I was in college, I took a karate class once and thought that was pretty cool. And then, when the Karate Kid movies came out, I thought, I should get back into that. And I looked into it, found a very good instructor who was a guy from Japan who was very well reputed, and became one of his students. And that's how I got into that. And I really enjoyed it. It was just, it just gives you good feeling to know you can do these different things that most people don't do. It was just a nice way to keep myself fit, and both mentally and physically.
Okay, so I think that's awesome that you saw the Karate Kid movies and
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
rekindled that
Really
desire.
Like, what? Yes, Daniel-san. Yes, wax on, wax
That's
off.
right. Yeah, that movie inspired a whole generation of people,
it really
to be
did.
sure.
Yeah.
All right, and then kind of the same question on canoeing, because that's even a little more unusual, I think, than karate.
Really
A lot of people find their way into martial arts, but not many people are on Hawaiian canoeing teams. So, what? Tell us a little bit about kind of how you got into that, and a little bit more about it. I mean, how many people are in the canoe? This sounds like it's a pretty big canoe. Is it one of those outrigger kind of?
It was an outrigger canoe. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
how did you get started with that?
You're gonna love this. So moved to Hawaii. It was so funny because I called. This is in Hilo, Hawaii, which is on the Big Island. I called up and I said, "Hey, do you guys need an anesthetist?" And they're like, "Yeah, when can you come?" I'm like, "What?" I'll tell you what. You could, if you try to get a job in Hawaii right now, forget it. I don't know how that happened, but anyway. And so I was down by the bay one day, Hilo Bay, and watching these guys practicing their canoe racing, and I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do this. So I walked up to the guys and I said, "Hey, I want to be on your canoe team." And they just kind of looked at me like, "Who is this bozo?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Okay, all right." And so they had regular workouts once or twice a week, and so I'd come work out with them, and they were a little standoffish, and but I kept working, kept coming every practice, and eventually we had a race on the other side, the Kona side of the island, and that was our first race. And I worked like crazy. I mean, we didn't. I don't know if we won or not. I don't really remember. But after that, we were brothers. I mean, we were like thick as blood. We were just like that was it. I guess I'd proven myself to them.
Right.
And so that's how I got into it. I just walked up and said, "Hey, I want to be in your canoe racing team."
And what,
simple as that.
You say they had work? Yeah, I mean that's crazy. You just walked up and said, "Hey, I want to join the team." Yeah, I'm sure you got some crazy looks there. And what kind of workouts does one do to prepare? You mentioned they worked out a couple of times a week. Does that just mean getting in the canoe and digging in with your paddle, or
in the canoe and digging in your canal? They would do some things also where we would kind of be in a fake boat and just kind of practice, paddling in sync and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there'd be commands. They do, commands to kind of keep you in sync with each other and stuff. So yeah, they would do a combination of things, but mostly it was getting out in the water. And Hilo Bay was interesting because it's full of hammerhead sharks. And I hear that occasionally people disappear, but I don't know. No, I think that's true.
All right. Yeah. Add a little bit more to the
breeding ground, for hammerheads. Yeah.
Okay. And how many men in a canoe, or people in a canoe?
5
in a canoe. I'm guessing this is pretty vigorous work then, right?
It's a lot of work. It really is. Yeah. It's good cardio. Yeah. Yeah.
And were you in shape when you joined that team? That sounds like something that you're a walk-on, right, so to speak.
Yeah, I was in decent shape. I mean, like I say, I did a lot of push-ups. I ran a bit, mm-hmm. and but I wasn't lifting weights or anything like that. From time to time, throughout my life, I've lifted weights a little bit, never seriously until now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got you through now you're in your 40s. You're an anesthetist in Hawaii, and you're on basically a crew team here on a canoe rowing team. What happens next? Where do you go from there?
Next, my family tells me they hate living in Hawaii, and we moved back to Utah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm from California originally, and I, spent a lot of time at the beach as a kid. And when I moved to Hawaii, I thought my family was going to love it. I knew, well, as far as I was concerned, I was where I was going to stay the rest of my life. My family didn't think so. So we came back to Utah. And, when I first moved to Utah from California, going back a little bit, I thought snow was really cool for about the first 2 weeks. I'm like, this is cold. I don't like this anymore. I had a younger daughter who taught me to enjoy the snow. She taught me how to ski. Her ski lesson involved this. We went up to a local ski resort. And it's nice. I live about 20 minutes from the ski resort, so it's pretty cool. And she said, "Okay, Dad, so you put the skis on like this. Now, if you want to go, you point your skis this way. If you want to stop, you go like this. Okay, chase me down the hill. Wham!" That was her lesson. And we spent the day skiing. It was pretty fun. She had taught me to rollerblade before, which helped.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and so she taught me how to my little daughter's teaching this old guy, guy in his 40s, how to dress properly in the snow, take dogs out and play in the snow and stuff. Anyway, so you might want to ask how I got into dog sledding.
Yeah. So before we were recording, we kind of mentioned that. Yeah. You mentioned I was telling you I had some dogs in the house, and if they bark, that's just par for the course. Right. You go, yeah, well, I've got 4 myself. So yeah, this is a great segue. How did you get into dog sledding?
Well, that's an interesting story too. We had a couple of American Eskimos, which are a small dog that kind of look like a Samoyed, but they're tiny and they're noisy. Not tiny, they're just, a medium-sized dog. And I thought, I think I'd like to get some Samoyeds because they're really cool dogs. Look like these guys, but they're bigger and they're sled dogs, And so I kept trying to find books about Samoyeds. Couldn't find anything about Samoyeds. It's very weird. But I kept seeing books on Siberian Huskies. And eventually I'm like, okay, I give up. I will read about Siberian Huskies. So I read a couple of books about them. There's good, bad, and ugly about them. They're not the breed for everybody. They have a lot of interesting issues. But anyway, so I read about them. I said, you know what? I'm excited about this. I want to get this. I want to get Siberian Huskies. So I found some responsible, reputable breeders, went and talked to them, and making a long story short, because I could talk forever about my dogs, I ended up getting one Siberian Husky. And the breeder that I had spoken to hooked me up with some people that were doing dog sledding, and they taught me how to do it, let me borrow their dogs for a while. Well, eventually, Siberian Huskies are like this. They're like potato chips. You can't have just one. So I got to the point where now I have 4, but I have 7 on my team. I have other people who found out about me, and we became friends, and their dogs are on my team as well. So when I run, I've got 7 on the team now. Actually, I've been running 6, and now I have 7. But that's how I got into it, just like that. And we go up, a couple of times a week when there's snow. Right now, it's starting to snow here. Not enough to sled on, but that's just how I got into it. Just like, I want to do this. It's kind of like the canoe racing thing. Kind of like the bodybuilding.
I'm going to point that out. That sounds familiar. Just walked up and said, "Hey guys, can I join you?" And kind of same thing with the dogs. Hey, I've got a dog. He could probably help pull a sled. I just need a few more.
Yeah. It's a recurring theme. Yeah, with me. Yeah.
And that's great. And yeah, we're gonna come back to that that theme, I think, here in just a minute. But so how long have you been working with doing the sledding?
13 years.
13 years. Okay, great. Now, do you compete, or is this just something you do for enjoyment? Or
well, we do it mostly for fun.
Okay.
We just go out and run. One of the places where we go, there's a lot of snowmobilers, and we get a lot of attention that way. Like, wait a minute, what dog sled? What? And they stop. They want to have pictures taken with us. They pet the dogs, and I'll take pictures of them. I say, why don't you stand on the sled? Let them stand on the sled, and take a picture of them on the sled dog, on the sled, and stuff like that. Competing, we have a race up north once a year on the first weekend of March. It's called the Canine Challenge, and there's about 14 or so sled dog teams that come to that race. It's pretty fun because you get 14 sled dog teams there. It's wild. You can't believe the noise, the howling and stuff. It's awesome. It's just really fun. But do we win these races? No. We're probably the slowest team out there, but we're the best looking team. So
is that it? Okay, great.
We've been on the front page of the newspaper twice. They've been in the race 3 times. They put us on the very front page of the newspaper twice because we're just that good looking. Not me, but the dogs. Yeah.
Okay.
Dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, those are spirited animals as well, right?
They very much so. You've got to keep them busy. They will, if you want your yard to look the face of the moon, go ahead and get a couple of those.
Okay.
You know, they're escape artists. As a breed, they're disobedient. It's amazing to teach them to do dog sledding, but they love it. They're a breed that's been around for thousands of years, and so that's just what they're meant to do, and they love it. They just go insane if they think we're gonna go sledding. So yeah, and they're disobedient. They kill things because, well, there's a long story behind that if you're interested. They back in the day, when there was no sledding left to be done, they were used as sled dogs for hunters. They would go out and get seals and that sort of thing, bring them back. When that season was over with, they just let the dogs run free. And if they didn't learn to hunt by themselves, well, they didn't survive. So my theory is that the Siberian Huskies of today still have that predator drive because it was a gene that was passed on, because the ones that lived were the ones that could hunt.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to watch them sneak up on things. They'll sneak up on birds or whatever. And they're like a cat. They're silent but deadly. They're very, very effective. But anyway, so that's one of the things too, and they're very good, very, very good hunters. Unfortunately for any animals that shouldn't be in your yard, for instance.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and it's a problem for some people, because they need to realize you can't let your dogs off a leash ever. You can't let your dogs out of the yard, but anyway,
you'd want to have a little space and
they should like you would not, but I am.
There's a deal breaker right there.
Okay, they shed it's insane constantly. Well, not constant, but if 2 are shedding, the other aren't. If the 2 aren't, then the other 2 are. Sometimes all 4 of them are.
Okay, so there's always dog hair. Yeah,
right.
That's okay. Understandable. All right, so
basic food group. It's a basic food group in my house.
Okay, so you've done a bunch of different and interesting things throughout your life, from the karate and the canoeing, and now dog sledding, which I believe you're still active in today, right?
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, when we get through with our interview today, I want to take the dogs out running, have them pull me on a bike for a little bit, just to keep them in practice.
Okay. That's kind of how you keep them in practice. Yeah. Off season there. Okay. So that brings us pretty close to what I really wanted to talk about. I found you on Instagram, and you had started a bodybuilding, I guess. You started bodybuilding, right? At the age of 70, you decided, hey, you know what? I want to be a bodybuilder, right? And you started to document this through your Instagram. So start us, I guess, at the beginning. What made you decide that, hey, I think you said you were just turning 70. Is that right? When you decided you wanted to do this?
I was 69 turning 70.
Okay. And decided, I feel like, what made you decide to do this?
Well, it's another one of those things where it was like, I think I want to be a bodybuilder. And I didn't have any particular reason. It was just something like, I think that's what I want to do. And so I got Arnold Schwarzenegger's encyclopedia and read through that. It's like 800 pages. And in fact, it's sitting right here in front of me. And just followed his advice. And I also got a book from Frank Zane and followed some. In fact, I've followed quite a bit from Frank Zane and some of his advice too, because I'm not 20 exactly. And Frank has some really sage advice that he's learned over time, from his experiences. And anyway, the teachings from both, really, I'll give Arnold and Frank Zane the credit for what I've been doing, because I've basically been following their programs. So I went to the gym and told the trainer that I want to be a bodybuilder. And he said, well, let's look at, let's write out a program for you. And I said, well, here's my program, because I'd already written it out from the books I've been reading from these 2 fine athletes. And he said, well, I don't know what else I can tell you, because it looks great. but he would give me advice from time to time, or watch what I was doing and say, you could do this a little bit different, that sort of thing. But anyway, so it wasn't more than a month or two, and people just started saying, "Hey, how old are you? Excuse me, but are those guns registered? Wow, you're ripped." I mean, just all this stuff. I had one day I'm just doing my thing in the gym, minding my own business, and these two Mexican girls are kind of checking me out. I'm like, whoa, what do you know? And they walked over with another guy, and they said, he's from Mexico. He doesn't speak English, but he says he wants to have a picture taken with you for inspiration. In fact, I posted that picture a few days ago. And I'm like, I had so many people telling me things like, you're my inspiration, or you give me motivation just seeing what you're doing. I thought, why don't I put this on Instagram and I can reach more people? Because it became like a mission. I felt like, wow, I didn't even realize that I was looking that great, but apparently I was, because people kept telling me I was. I'm like, okay, well, I started looking in the mirror. Like, yeah, I guess you're right. And so that's really where it started. That's where this whole Instagram thing started, was just because I realized it was a way to get, to get my message out to more people that, hey, you can do things that you thought you couldn't do. Or what are you waiting for? Do you want to do a certain thing in your life? It doesn't have to be bodybuilding or weightlifting, but maybe there's something that you've been putting off. Well, don't put it off. Why don't you get started now? And that's really my message. It's not so much be a bodybuilder or lift weights, but it is kind of, take care of yourself. You can stay healthy, or if you're not healthy, you can get there.
That's fantastic. And obviously I wholeheartedly love all of that. The fact that you're telling people you can start now, you can do this, you're a great inspiration. And I think that you're experiencing what I see is we kind of have this paradigm of aging, or we have this preconceived notion of aging as a culture, right? And it doesn't look like you.
Yes.
It doesn't, frankly. It looks like, sadly, it often looks like people, when you tell somebody to think of, just close your eyes and imagine a 70-year-old, they're probably thinking of somebody maybe in a nursing home with some sort of metabolic derangement happening, perhaps obese, they're on a lot of medicines. They don't think of people that are healthy and vibrant and strong, frankly. And maybe some of that's changing, and I think that it is, and I certainly hope that it is. And that's certainly the mission that I have, right? It's kind of to shine a light on healthy aging, and that there is an alternative to what we often think of as, these golden years, so to speak. So when I see people like you out there looking the way you do and spreading the message you do, it just kind of, it lights me up, right? So hats off to you. I think that's fantastic that once again, you just saw something and said, yeah, you know what? I think I'll be a bodybuilder. So tell us, what does your workout routine look like? What does a typical week look like for you working out?
Well, I switch things up from time to time. I don't, I may go for a few weeks or a few months doing sort of the same thing, and then I'll switch it up, because you have to keep the body, you have to keep tricking the muscles. You can't, if you get into too much of a routine, then pretty soon the body's, I'm used to, I know what you're going to do. Yeah. You're like, no, I'm going to fool you. So like right now, what I'm doing, I am training 4 days a week. I feel like it's important to have a few days of rest and recovery. So what I do now, like this week, today is Thursday. Today's my day off. That's why we're talking today. So Monday, I did arms and shoulders together. Tuesday, I did legs. Wednesday, I did chest and back, which was yesterday. Today's off. Tomorrow, I'll do arms and shoulders again. Next week, I'll flip it. I'll do arms and shoulders once. I'll do chest and back twice, legs once. One thing that I learned from Frank Zane was, don't train your upper body 2 days in a row. He says, don't do that. You'll eventually kill your shoulders. He knows. He's been there. And so I took that to heart. So I do not train upper body 2 days in a row for that very reason. And as you'll notice, so I'm doing, upper body one day, legs the next day, upper body again, day off, upper body, and then the weekend off. So what I normally do right now is I have Thursday and the weekend off from training. And I feel like that gives me, adequate time to recover. Sometimes it's not quite enough. Depends on the days. Some days I'll do a really heavier workout. Other days I'll do a lighter workout, depending, just letting listen to my body is telling me. And one of the things that I found that's been really, I think, beneficial to me and helped me to make some gains is every time I do training, I'll start out light and then work up into heavier sets, and then kind of to where I'm like, okay, that's good. Stop there. So I kind of listen to myself most of the time.
Right. So are you doing kind of classic hypertrophy, 3 sets of 10 on these different types of movements? What is your thought in terms of sets and rep schemes? What are you currently doing?
Well, right now I'm actually I'm listening to my body. I mean, there's been in the past, I've done different things where I'm doing, 3 sets of 10 or 3 sets of 12 or, 4 sets of whatever, or, higher weights with lower reps, maybe 6 to 8 reps and things like that. And like I say, right now, what I'm doing is I'm starting out really light and just kind of going to where it feels like, okay, you know what, you could do more, but just don't go to your absolute max. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And it's really tempting, especially when you're around other people in the gym, to put on some really heavy weights and stuff like that. But I don't feel that. I mean, when I was younger, I might have felt like that. But I'm like, you know what? I know that I'm doing well. I know that I'm looking. I hate to say this. I know I'm looking pretty great according to other people. I look at myself in the mirror sometimes and I go, I don't know. Well, that's the idea. You look in the mirror to critique yourself anyway. But to me, it's just more about, is this am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing to build my body? And it's like building a sculpture in a way. And I'm maybe getting a little bit off a subject, but my goal is not to look like a Marvel cartoon character that's really scary. My ideal is the Roman or Greek statues. Those were aesthetic. And for me, aesthetics is what it's all about. And just looking really good and feeling great.
Yeah, so that's a good point.
Did I evade the question?
No, you most certainly did. Yeah, no, you answered the question very eloquently, in fact, yes. No, and I think that I love the fact that you say you listen to your body and that you're not, certainly you have the wisdom to know when is enough. And to your point, kind of, my sets and reps are going to be dependent on kind of how I feel and how I look and the slow process of building muscle. So I think that a lot of people might be surprised that somebody in their 70s could actually build significant amount of muscles. And clearly you're doing that. You're putting on muscle, you're defining muscle. You've got, it looks like pretty low body fat. I think that a lot of what you're seeing is people are in the gym saying, well, now, wait a minute, how old are you? And you're finding that not only is your body responding to this type of workout, but you just alluded to this is carrying over into other parts of your life, right? I'm sure you're feeling more confident, more capable. This has to transfer to when you're out running around with your dogs and doing other things. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, dog sledding is definitely a workout itself. Mm-hmm. People think you're standing on the sled. No. You're, sometimes you're running alongside the sled. Sometimes you're, it's like a skateboard. You're whatever that's called, where you're pushing with your foot, and it's a workout. You're kind of exhausted by the time you're done.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about you alluded to your these days you're doing 4 days, when to push and when to hold back a little bit. And you had mentioned you feel like that those 3 days give you enough time to recover. What are your thoughts on recovery when it comes to working out? Well,
if you don't give yourself enough time to recover, you're going to eventually have injury. I mean, or you're going to start losing muscle, actually. So it's very important that you get that, and it's important to get plenty of sleep. I know that there are some people, and I've talked to people and tried to convince them that it's really a bad idea to be working out 7 days a week. I mean, you never stop every day, 7 days a week. I'm like, you can't do that. You're eventually gonna suffer. You're gonna get sick. You're going to start losing muscle instead of gaining it. You're gonna get injured. The body has to have time to recover.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty well known fact that you're actually building muscle when you recover, not when
Right.
you're in the gym. You're
And when
when
you're
you're in the gym,
sleeping.
you're tearing down. Right. I think it was Mark Ripito that said, what did he say? Sleep is the most anabolic substance known to man.
Right.
So yeah, sleep is absolutely your friend when it comes to building lean muscle mass. Absolutely. All right, well, let's switch topics a little bit and talk about nutrition. So you've got a very active lifestyle, right? You're between the sounds like with the dog sledding and the working out. How do you fuel all this activity?
With food.
Uh, Fantastic, yeah. Could you
So,
elaborate, maybe?
okay. You wanted more than that?
Sure.
Right. Well, okay. I make sure that I eat at least a gram per pound for my body weight pound of protein. And actually, it ends up being more like a gram to a gram and a half per pound of my weight. That's the one thing. Um, I use an app called MyFitnessPal,
Yep. Okay.
which I love it. I've been using it almost since I started this bodybuilding, and it tracks your macros. It's awesome. I use it every single day. So what I do right now is I'm making sure I'm getting, like I say, the gram and a half per pound of protein, and 20 to 30% fat, and then the rest carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are important. That's the fuel for your muscles. And I eat good food. I don't eat any garbage, except maybe a birthday or something like that. I'm somewhat fanatic, but not crazy fanatic. I will eat whatever at a party. It's not going to kill you. Having cake and ice cream will not kill you. Will not make you turn into a slob. I promise. But I'm very careful to eat well. I eat a lot of eggs. I eat a lot of fish. I eat yogurt every day too, just plain yogurt. Put some berries in it and stuff. But I'm I'm probably not getting quite enough calories. I'm actually really cut right now, and I think I'm going to up my calories a bit. I've been eating about 2,800, and I'm upping it to 3,000. Because I think that's what I need. But that's me personally. I don't know. It's individual. Just based on what I'm seeing, I think I need a little bit more. Not answering the question, am I?
No, I think you answered it very well. Yeah. So it sounds like, you're prioritizing protein was the first thing you said, right? You're getting
Yes.
that gram and a half per pound of body weight. And I think that's very common in folks that have got performance or aesthetic goals.
Right.
Then we're doing, you said maybe 20, 30% of your total calories going to come from healthy fats. And then the
Right.
remainder could be carbs, because that's really what's, like you said,
Right.
that's what's fueling that activity.
Right.
And you're tracking all this. That's a or probably the most common one is the MyFitnessPal. I certainly use that, and most of the folks I know are using that one. So you're looking at your total caloric intake as well, and kind of tweaking that. It sounds like you said you're at 28, thinking about going to 3,000. Now, were you doing any kind of calorie counting or macro tracking before you started on this bodybuilding adventure? No. So that was something that I'm sure somewhere along the line, although certainly Frank and Arnold didn't have MyFitnessPal, but they were very cognizant of the importance of protein and certainly eating enough to fuel the muscle growth, et cetera. So we talked a little bit about your workout routine. We talked a little bit about your recovery strategies, and certainly talked a little bit about your nutrition. And it sounds like the bulk of your nutrition is coming from, is it fair to say, whole foods? You mentioned that you're eating most healthy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, but not denying yourself, like you said, if you're at a party and there's cake and ice cream and you want it, well, yeah, why not?
Go for it. Yep.
All right. So my question then is, here you are in your journey. You've started this, we said what? Have you been at this almost 2 years? Is that about right?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years in February. 2 years in February.
2 years in February. And for those listening to this in the future, we're recording this in November. So what's next? Where are you going from here?
Well, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I actually when I started this, I decided that I actually would like to do competition as a 70-year-old, and So I'm looking into that. I'm going to be looking to find a trainer. I think it'll be important for me to find a trainer to look at me and say, Steve, do this. Steve, stop doing that. Here's some things you need to do. I think I need to have somebody, even though I've got instruction from the greatest in the world, I got to have somebody putting eyes on me and saying, okay, fix this, fix that. Fix that. So that's where I'm at. And I actually I'm trying to find a trainer.
So, and when you say a competition, just to clarify, you mean a bodybuilding competition?
Bodybuilding competition. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So you took it on yourself at turning 70. You said, you know what? I think I want to be a bodybuilder. And lo and behold, you did it, right? I think it sounds like, listening to your life story, that's, you typically jump into things and stick with them. And here you are, you're looking great. You're inspiring people. And now you're going to do your first bodybuilding show at 70 something, right?
Hopefully so. Yeah.
Hopefully so. That's fantastic. Now, do you have a timeline? I know you said you're looking for a coach, but are you thinking, I might do this next year or in the next 12 months?
I was actually thinking about doing it this year, and then COVID came along.
COVID, yeah.
And I wasn't really feeling quite prepared. And I was like, that's my excuse.
That's your excuse. All right. So just more time to prepare. That's
right.
all.
There was actually an NPC show here locally. And I was like, here it comes. I better go sign up. I'm like, oh, here's COVID. I can't do it. Dang. Okay. But
that'll give you time to track down a coach. And like you said, to kind of start tweaking.
Yeah, next year I want to do it. And we'll just see.
Next year? All right.
I've seen older people. I even hate to use the word older because I don't feel, or I look in the mirror and I go, who's this older guy in there in the mirror? But I don't feel that way. I don't feel. I hate to even use the word older when referring to myself. But I've seen guys my age and younger that I think I look better than. And it's like, I can give these guys a run for their money. I think I can maybe wipe the stage with some of these guys. So, and I don't say that with, a lot of pride. I'm just saying, I looking at him, looking at me, I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah.
Yeah. You got a shot at this, right? Yeah. I can do this. I wholeheartly agree with you. I think you do.
Yeah. And again, there'll be another way to inspire people. And they can say, what? Like this guy's, on the stage winning championships. What, at 70? And the competition for people at this age is probably somewhat limited too. They have masters and grandmasters, but it depends on it's not in every competition doesn't have those categories, so it could be a challenge. So we'll just see how it goes.
That's great. So, and do you have other things that you're looking forward to outside of the bodybuilding thing? I know you're got to be very active with the dogs. Yeah,
that's kind of my life.
Okay, no, that's fair.
My dogs, my bodybuilding. Yeah, I'm very good with languages. I speak a few languages, and so I work on that too. I speak Italian fluently, and I speak Russian and German. I'm working on those. So those are some other interests that I have, but I'm sort of limited in my interests at this point, but who knows what'll come up next.
Well, I'm not sure. Somebody listening to, I'm studying a couple languages. I'm a dog sledder. And I've taken up bodybuilding at the age of 70. And I'm going to get in my first show. I'm not sure that everybody would agree that that's limited.
Well, I when I was working at the university in the anesthesia department, one of the people I worked with was actually the dean of the College of Medicine. He says, Steve, you're like the most interesting man in the world. All these things you've done, and like, okay. You'd always, you already say, oh, there he is, the most interesting man in the world. And I would say, stay thirsty, my friends.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, as we kind of wrap up here, where would you like people to connect with you?
Well, Instagram is, the one place. I don't know what other platform there would be. I mean, there's email, telephone, whatever.
So, you're I found you on Instagram, right? Your bodybuilding transformation at 70.
Right.
And I believe you're also your name, right? Is your on your
Yes.
personal. So if folks want to see the dogs, they need to go to the personal account.
Right. The Steve Ortgiesen account. Right.
Yeah, that's right. And if you want to see the bodybuilding stuff over
Yeah.
there at Bodybuilding Transformation at 70,
Yeah. I'm
and
on
I can drop
Facebook as well. But Facebook is
Facebook as well.
just
Yeah.
Steve Ortgiesen. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I can drop that into the show notes so that people can find you there, can reach out to you if they like, right?
That's cool. That would be neat. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, you're obviously a great inspiration for healthy aging and letting us all know that we can start things at any time, right? I mean, we don't have to
Sure.
wait.
Yeah.
And certainly want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your inspiration and your thoughts with us.
You're welcome. I think there's something else that I should say that people may want to know.
Absolutely.
So I've had issues. I've had an ablation for atrial fibrillation. I've had a total hip replacement. I've had several hernia surgeries, but none of this has stopped me or even, slowed me down for, when I had to recover. But these are all things that I've gone through, and yet I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think it's important for people to know, especially people that maybe, have had health issues. You don't let things like that stop you. I mean, obviously there's going to be things where you can't do stuff, but a lot of it is what's in your head. A lot of it is, I'm going to do this. To mental. I think the mental part is more important than anything else.
Yeah. So, I guess before we sign off, then let's pick that apart a little bit because I think that's critical. Yeah, I don't think you live for 70 years without having certain setbacks. Everybody does. Health issues. Yeah, you talked about the AFib and the ablation as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hip replacement. So you've obviously had to overcome things, and certainly that's a big part of life. And I think that oftentimes people will let things like that be limiters in their lives, right? They reach these sometimes horrible setbacks and are not able to overcome. I think I read maybe it was in one of your posts, you said that you talked about how believing is the secret to your success. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? You were kind of mentioning that just having that faith in yourself, or that's what you were alluding to there as you were saying, as I didn't let these things hold me back. I believed that I could do it, and I did.
Well, yeah, it's key. I guess it's just so natural to me to believe in believing that I don't think about that very much. But yeah, as you've learned about me, when I want to do something, I just do it. I just believe I can do it. I learned this from one of the surgeons I used to work with. He would frequently say, "Fear is a mind killer." And I talk about that sometimes too in my posts. That don't let fear stop from doing something. Just do it. We're afraid. I'm afraid I might ruin my hip, or I'm afraid I might put myself back into atrial fibrillation, or I'm afraid I might bust a hernia out, or something like that. Well, maybe I should just sit in a rocking chair with a blanket over my knees and watch Wheel of Fortune all day and eat macaroni and cheese. Maybe I should just do that, and have maybe have a cat on my lap or something like that. No, that's ridiculous. I believe that I can do basically anything I want. I mean, let's face it. I'm not going to be the prima ballerina of the Bolshoi Ballet. As much as I want to, I can believe it, but that ain't going to happen. Within reality, I can do anything I want to do.
Yeah, that's very well said. I love that. I love that you have that belief in yourself. And talking about fear, it's if you don't experience fear and overcome it, you can't know courage. You can't be brave, right? And
Right.
so fear is going to happen. It's going to happen to all of us. It has happened to all of us. It's just your reaction to that will determine a lot of your future and the outcome in the case that we're talking about, in your health and your wellness, right? And a lot of other areas in life, certainly fear can hold you back. But I think that's a critical point, that belief, that self-belief, and that willingness to face fear and to overcome it is what's critical for healthy aging.
Right. Well, people say, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I do this? What if it doesn't? Just go.
Right.
Right. The thing is, when things happen, when bad things happen, what do we do normally? We deal with it. Don't let fear stop you from doing those things. I'm also a hypnotherapist. So I've worked with a lot of people on these very things. And it's an important concept right there, is what if the worst things happen? Well, you deal with it. So why don't you think about what you want instead of what you don't want? And I think that's a key right there. A lot of people think, well, what if this happens? I use this in my anesthesia practice. I would talk to patients and tell them, let's imagine the outcome. Let's imagine your surgery's over. It's a couple weeks down the road. You're feeling great. You're back doing things you wanted to do before, instead of thinking, oh, what if I die? What if I bleed to death? What if I get an infection? Don't do that. Think about how nice it's going to be now that I've got this, whatever it is, fixed. And I can do the things I want to do. Just imagine your future. See yourself up the mountains hiking. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what if works both ways, right? What if you could imagine the worst case scenario, what if, but you could also imagine the best case scenario within a what if, right? Well, right. What if I dared to do this and I was wildly successful beyond my craziest dreams? What about that? What if that, yes. Right? So two different ways of looking at what if. Yeah.
Well, I think that'd be one of the main things that I'd like to leave is that, probably one of the main messages I'd like to leave is that you should think about what you want instead of what you don't want. For that very reason, that if you think about the things you don't want, that's going to stop you. That's going to affect you mentally. You're going to think, well, and then you create a self-fulfilling prophecy. You fail because you thought so much about failing. Why not think about what you want? Think about, that's my phrase, think about what you want, not about what you don't want. I want to be a bodybuilder, so I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about, every day I go, why, I'm happy in the gym because I know what I'm accomplishing. I see a lot of grumpy faces in the gym. It's not, it's like, guys, come on. You're working on something. Let's be happy because you're building yourself up. You're sculpting a body, making yourself like the statue of David. At least that's my idea.
That's perfect. I think maybe we can leave it right there. I wish you all the best in the world moving forward. And like I said, you're a great inspiration to a lot of folks, and I'm sure we'll all be keeping an eye on you to see where this journey goes.
Kevin, thank you so much. It's been so nice to be able to talk with you and share my experiences. Hopefully, I am going to help more people through this.
Well, that's our show for today, folks. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends and please consider subscribing and giving us a 5-star review. All the show notes and much more are available at our website at silver-edge.com. That's silver-edge.com. So until next time, stay strong.